We'll continue with the scripture now, and we're continuing our way through Matthew, and today we pick up the story at a sort of a critical juncture in the gospel, and this is the story of the Transfiguration. It's sort of the great revealing of who Christ is as the Son of God.
Our reading this morning is Matthew 16, 24, 17, 8. Then Jesus told his disciples, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit them if they gain the whole world but forfeit their life? Or what will they give in return for their life? For the Son of Man is to come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will repay everyone for what he has done. Truly I tell you, there are some standing here who will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and his brother John and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will make 3 dwellings here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, suddenly a bright cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud a voice said, "This is my Son, the beloved. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell to the ground, and they were overcome by fear. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Get up and do not be afraid." And when they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus himself alone. The word of the Lord.
So this story in the Bible today is sort of the quintessential mountaintop experience. Now, I know that's sort of a Christian cliche, but there is really no better way to describe the Transfiguration story than a mountaintop experience. I mean, it has everything a good mountaintop experience should have. First, it's on a mountain. That's step one. That works. And if you've ever made your way up to the top of a mountain, you get it, right? There's just something special about standing above the earth, closer to the sky. Throughout the Bible, mountains are these places where the boundary between heaven and earth is like just a little bit thinner. It's truly a special place on a mountain. So that's a good step one. It's got a mountain. Step two, it's got something mysterious and really exciting happening. Matthew says that Jesus' face changed on that mountain. And I don't know if that means he was like shining like the sun, like he was happier, or if his face was literally shining like the sun. Whatever it was different, it was unique, it was special, classic mountaintop experience. There is fashion on this mountain, and that helps too. Dazzling, white, bright clothes, the likes of which people never saw before the invention of bleach. Who knew that laundry could be a mountaintop experience? I did not. And there are friends on this mountain. Jesus took James and John and Peter up the mountain. And I will say that I have climbed a few mountain peaks on my own by myself, and that experience is just not the same as it is when you share it with somebody else. Mountaintop experiences are meant to be shared experiences. There's even celebrity sightings on this mountaintop experience. And not just any celebrities. These celebrities have encountered God, which is kind of a big deal. They had their own mountaintop experiences. Moses once saw God's backside as God passed in front of him on Mount Sinai. And Elijah experienced the fullness of God in the sound of sheer silence on Mount Horeb. If you did not know you were having a mountaintop experience, seeing these two people up there on that mountaintop would sort of give it away. because these two were famous for finding God on a mountain, it's pretty clear that that is exactly what is happening on this mountain. Another sighting of God. This time it is Jesus being revealed on this mountaintop as the fullness of the presence of God on earth. In the heart of this gospel story, there is a mountain, and on this mountain stands the Son of God. And like any good mountaintop experience, there is always somebody who does not want it to end. And of course, it's Peter. The older that I get, the more I understand Peter in the Bible. See, Peter knows what it's like to go back down the mountain, right? Peter knows what it's like back in the real world. Peter knows what awaits them when they get home from this mountaintop experience. Peter knows how much harder faith is when an experience like this is over. So he tries to hold on to it for dear life. He says, let's make some tents. Let's stay a while up here. I can't even count the number of Peters I've known in my life. People sitting around the campfire on the last night of a camping trip, singing their hearts out, never going to sleep. People deliriously staying awake for a 24-hour bus ride home from a mission trip. People making plans to get together when this is all over for a reunion to try to recreate some of that magic. People meeting with their pastor because they need to tell somebody about this revelation that they had that no one else seems to get. All they want is for that mountaintop experience to last forever. But it never does. Sure enough, the minute that Jesus and his disciples get down from that mountain, Jesus will meet a family in the darkest valley of their lives. There will be the story of a boy whose seizures have sent him into fires, have sent him drowning in the water more than once. Their beautiful boy being destroyed by something they do not understand. And in that darkest valley of their lives, Jesus and the disciples meet them and pull them out. You got mountaintops and you got valleys. And faith, for so many people, is right there in the mountaintops and the valleys. Those mountaintops, they come at camp, or they come on mission trips, or in a really good book study, or with the launch of a new ministry. They come when you're asked to lead something in church and share your gifts. They come when you call a new pastor or you join a new church and it feels like home. And you know that you are experiencing something exciting. You feel on fire. And it's on those mountaintops where I think it's the easiest place to believe in Jesus. And then there's the valleys, right? Those deep, dark places of our loneliness and our despair, and we feel the furthest from God and from other people. Those valleys that can come after the death of a loved one, or the loss of a job, or a heartbreak. And faith is often found in those valleys when we feel like we've been rescued. You don't hear as many of those stories in the Lutheran church, but they're big in other churches. All these stories about who fell the deepest and climbed out of the hole with God. But today, as I reflect on this story of mountaintops and valleys, I am left wondering, what about life on flat ground? What happens when faith heads east in Colorado and not west? All right, when you're driving on I-76 towards Nebraska, you don't even have to turn your steering wheel one time. What is faith in the flat grounds of our life? Now, I know some of you are in the valley. And let me tell you right here, there's no depth that Christ will not go to pull you out. There is nothing too shameful or too embarrassing for Jesus to face. Jesus does not believe in lost causes. He will come down from the mountaintop, shining with the glory of God, and he will step in where others dare not go to heal you. That's Jesus. And some of you might be in this room on the mountaintop. You might feel like you finally found your right calling or the right church, and your faith just feels right. Thank God. Use that passion. Go for it. Keep the fire alive. But I'm guessing that most of you are somewhere on the eastern plains of Colorado today. You might have mountaintops and valleys in your rear view mirror, and maybe that's why you're here. Maybe you're wondering, what is faith if it's not on a mountaintop? What is faith if it's not being rescued from the deepest, darkest valley? The flat grounds of our lives can be one of the most difficult places for our faith because we just don't always expect Jesus to meet us here. It's not on fire. It's not a rescue mission. It's just normal life, maybe even mundane, maybe even boring. And since we don't expect Jesus to meet us here, we might stop looking for Jesus. And if we stop looking for Jesus in our normal, boring lives, we end up like the disciples who so often in the story do not perceive the truth of Jesus, even though he's standing right in front of them. I think this is why God says what God says on the mountain. God tells the disciples who are up there on this mountaintop experience, he says, "This is my son, listen to him." Not just here on the mountaintop, not just down in the valleys, but every day he is speaking grace anew into your lives. Listening for Jesus is like anything else in our lives. It does get better with practice. Because Jesus is showing up all the time, regardless of whether or not you feel on fire for God or you feel like you need a rescue mission. You just have to pay attention. So maybe as you get in the car this week to drive to your next appointment or your next meeting or your next day at work, stop for a minute before you get out of the car and wonder to yourself, where might I see Jesus in this normal place? And then as you drive home, maybe reflect on where he showed up. Was he there? Was he where you expected him to be? See, one practice I think that a lot of us do well is saying thank you to God. Whenever I ask people where they saw God this week, they almost always say that they saw God in a blessing. And that is a great practice. But what if you practiced looking for Jesus beyond your blessings and your gratitude? Remember, Jesus was surprising. He was glowing on a mountain. He was healing demon-possessed boys with seizures. He was a God dying on the cross. He was resurrecting life as we know it, and he is meeting you with unexpected grace. So maybe ask yourself from time to time, where did Jesus meet me in an unexpected person? How did Jesus challenge what I had already judged about somebody else? How is Jesus inspiring me to do something that I don't think I can do? Where is Jesus showing me I'm wrong today? Where did Jesus give me the grace that I thought I didn't even deserve? How is Jesus flipping the script of my life? When you start practicing looking for Jesus in those kinds of questions, you'll soon realize that your normal, mundane life is full of wonderful, surprising moments of grace. And it is a practice that I am so privileged as your pastor that I get to do on this weekly basis. I get to look back on my life and I get to see all these ways that Jesus has cajoled me and surprised me and frustrated me and loved me and sustained me in the mountains and the valleys and the flat places. And then I come here and I tell you all about them on Sunday mornings. But preaching doesn't have to be a pulpit gig. You can preach when you tell your friend or your spouse or your mom where Jesus showed up on the flat ground of your life. How Jesus challenged you to see something bigger. How Jesus showed up in a surprising grace. And it's that kind of witness that we do with each other on the flat ground of our faith that just might help someone else find Jesus in their life too. Thanks be to God. Amen.